How do you fit 9 human beings into a 13 square meter apartment? The answer is simple. You take them apart. October 2017. Police stepped into room 205 in Zama City looking for a missing woman. The man inside, Takahiro Shiraishi, was disturbingly polite, but the room told a different story. It was stacked floor to ceiling with camping coolers and storage crates, and the air was thick with a sickening mix of rotting flesh and cat litter. One officer covered his nose and asked, "Where is she?" Shiraishi didn't panic. He didn't make an excuse. He simply pointed to a cooler box near the entrance. "She's in here." The officer opened the lid. Buried under a layer of white cat sand, 2 severed heads stared back at him. "Where are the others?" the officer gasped. Shiraishi pointed to the other boxes. "In there, and in there." 9 people, 8 women, 1 man, harvested, dismembered, packed like groceries in a room where he slept and ate. Today, we enter the mind of the Twitter killer, a man who turned the internet's saddest cries for help into a shopping list. You just stepped into the dark side of Japan. To understand this nightmare, you have to understand the trap. Japan has long struggled with a high suicide rate, a silent crisis that persists beneath the surface of its polite society. But by 2017, part of that crisis had migrated to a new digital home, Twitter. Young people, crushed by societal pressure, bullying, or loneliness, began using specific suicide hashtags. Hashtag, I want to die. Hashtag, looking for someone to die with. According to experts and later investigations, many of these users weren't just looking for death. They were also reaching out for connection. They wanted someone to say, "I understand." Takahiro Shiraishi saw this, and he appears to have treated it not as a tragedy, but as an opportunity. He created multiple Twitter accounts. His persona was specific. He didn't just play the role of a friend, he played the role of an expert. One of his handles roughly translates to the hanging professional. His bio presented a chilling offer. "I want to help people who are really in pain. Please DM me." He didn't just offer emotional sympathy, he offered logistics. He told vulnerable girls, "I have the knowledge, I have the equipment, I will help you do it right." And the most dangerous lie of all, "I will die with you." This was the glitch in the system. These women may have been looking for a savior or a partner in their final moments. Instead, they encountered a predator who had optimized the process of hunting. He didn't stalk them in dark alleyways. He scrolled through hashtags on his smartphone, lying in bed. He filtered them with the cold logic of a recruiter filtering resumes. Is she alone? Does she have money? Will anyone miss her immediately? If the conditions were right, he sent the DM. Let's meet. The horror of the Zama case isn't just the number of victims, it's the speed. 9 people killed between late August and late October 2017. That is a pace of roughly 1 murder per week. Let's look at the timeline. It is dizzying. He moved into that apartment on August 22nd. By the end of August, just 9 days later, the first victim was dead. The second followed shortly after, then the third. Over time, the killings and dismemberments started to follow a grim, repetitive pattern, almost like a macabre routine he had become dangerously efficient at. But how did he manage it? How do you kill and dispose of 9 bodies in a thin-walled Japanese apartment without the neighbors calling the police? Shiraishi detailed his method in court. He would lure the women to his apartment, give them alcohol or tranquilizers, and assault them. Then, he would strangle them from behind with a rope. He later told investigators that rendering them unconscious first made it quieter and easier to finish the job. But the killing was the easy part. The disposal was the work. Shiraishi realized that carrying a body out was too risky, so he turned his tiny unit bath into a processing station. According to his testimony and media reports, he would sometimes hang the bodies to let the blood drain before dismembering them. Imagine that image. A quiet apartment, the TV is on, and in the bathroom, a body is suspended. He would wait, listening to the sound. At first, the blood rushed out. Then, it slowed down. When the dripping stopped, he knew the body was ready. He cut the flesh off the bones. Some reports describe the precision as being similar to filleting a fish. The flesh went into plastic bags and was thrown out with the regular garbage, but the bones, especially the skulls, were too hard to crush, so he put them into the cooler boxes. He covered them with cat litter to absorb the fluids and the smell. Then he sealed the lid with duct tape. And here is the most disturbing part. He lived with them. For weeks, he slept in that loft bed. He ate his convenience store bentos. He scrolled on his phone, all while living in the same 13 square meter room as the severed heads of his victims. Why did he keep them? His answer was chillingly practical. He explained that he feared they would be found and identified if he threw them away. It wasn't a ritual, it was just a decision to avoid arrest. And what was the value of these lives to him? Money. He stole their wallets. From one victim, he reportedly took hundreds of thousands of yen. But from another, he found only a few coins or a small bill. The amounts varied wildly, but he killed them all the same. To Shiraishi, the value of a human life wasn't in the person. It was just in the opportunity to take whatever they had. So, how did he get away with it for 2 months? The neighbors noticed a smell. One neighbor described it as something like sewage, but in Japan, there is a strong cultural norm of non-interference. You don't knock on your neighbor's door to complain. You endure it, or you call the management company. That distance, that politeness, gave Shiraishi the cover he needed. But the real turning point wasn't the police, it was a civilian. The brother of the final victim refused to accept that his sister had simply run away. The police initially treated her disappearance as a voluntary case, since she was an adult who had posted about taking her own life. Frustrated, the brother accessed her Twitter account, found her DMs, and persuaded a female acquaintance to act as a decoy to lure Shiraishi out. He did the detective work. The police simply arrived for the arrest, and then came the trial. In high-profile murder cases, defense teams often argue for reduced responsibility. Shiraishi's lawyers tried this strategy. They argued that because the victims had posted suicidal thoughts on social media, they had consented to be killed. They aimed to reduce the charge from murder to murder with consent. This would have saved him from the death penalty, but Shiraishi, he sabotaged his own defense. In a stunning move, he openly contradicted his lawyers in court. He told the judge that there was no true consent. He stated that the victims had resisted and that he had killed them to silence them. He effectively told the court, "They didn't want to die. I murdered them against their will." Why did he do this? It wasn't out of guilt. His actions suggested a complete lack of interest in self-preservation or redemption. When asked about meeting the bereaved families, he reportedly refused, showing no desire to apologize. Some reports even suggest he expressed regret, not for the killings, but for getting caught before he could meet more of the women he had been messaging. He was sentenced to death in December 2020. His lawyers filed an appeal to save his life, but Shiraishi withdrew the appeal himself in early 2021. He accepted the sentence. Observers noted that he seemed bored with the legal proceedings, treating his own execution as just another inevitable logistical step. Takahiro Shiraishi is no longer waiting. On June 27, 2025, the trapdoor finally opened. He was executed by hanging at the Tokyo detention house. The monster is gone. But the scary part isn't Shiraishi. The scary part is the system he exploited, and that system is still very much alive. Shiraishi once said something that haunts everyone who studies this case. He claimed that many of the people who came to him didn't purely want to die. They were looking for someone to listen. For many, the post, #IWantToDie, was actually a cry for connection, and the only person who answered was a butcher. In the years since the murders, Twitter, now X, has expanded its safety features. If you search for suicide-related terms today, a pop-up appears offering a hotline number. But let's be honest, do we really think a pop-up stops a predator? Do we think it cures the loneliness of a teenager scrolling in the dark? Shiraishi's case proved that in the digital age, you don't need a white van or a weapon to kidnap someone. You just need a smartphone and a carefully faked sense of empathy. The victims of the Zama case walked into that apartment voluntarily. They took off their shoes, they sat down, they trusted him because, in a world that seemed to ignore them, he was the one person paying attention. So, here is the question for you today. The next time you see someone posting about their pain online, who is watching them? Is it a friend? Or is it the next predator, using the same digital hunting ground, waiting for the blood to drain? This is Japan Crime Radio, will see you in the dark.